We are so happy that you all are here to join us. This panel is all about the fans of the Dark Crystal, fans who love the Dark Crystal, producers of new material for the Dark Crystal, fans who wrote new material for the Dark Crystal, and fans who produced and directed fan films of the Dark Crystal. I heard that there was going to be somebody, a fan, coming dressed in a Dark Crystal costume, and I'm a little sad that person's not here. But
I
maybe
think he's on his way.
we shall see a fan in a super
He
costume.
can't move
which
super
could
fast
be
in it.
epic.
He has to like do like
I'm really hoping. The evolution and continued love of this franchise over 30 years later is really due to the loyalty of the fans. And now in the world of YA and graphic novels, it's not only is the franchise celebrated, but it's expanding. So here with us today are Joe Lee, our author of The Shadows of the Dark Crystal. Yay, Joe! Rob Valois, our executive editor, Penguin Young Readers, edited this amazing book. And Sierra Hahn, our senior editor at Boom Studios, responsible for the Dark Crystal Creation Myths Volumes 1, 2, and 3, and I'm sure she'll tell us about all kinds of other things coming up. And although she's not here, we'll show at the end of this panel the grand prize winner, Kristen Dalesky of the Dark Crystal fan film, The Promise. So I'm really excited about that. I'm Halle Stanford, and I am a super fan of the Dark Crystal, and I'm also responsible for the development and production of all of children's entertainment at the Jim Henson Company. And I can say that one of the greatest days of my life, one of them, my son's like, I'm here, what about when I was born? Was when I, along with Lisa Henson, got to lead the creative Great Conjunction at the Jim Henson Company, where Brian Froud came, and Boom Archaia was there, and all these executives and writers and artists, and it was amazing. And we really worked for a whole week on coming up with new canon for the Dark Crystal, the prequel, sequel, and all of the above. So out of that collaboration, this canon went up and affected everything that we're talking about here. So before we get into it, I've been asked to do a little housekeeping and read the calendar for you guys that later today, from 1:30 to 2:30, Joe is going to have a panel signing in Autograph Area 9. So it's right after today, signing copies of The Shadow of the Dark Crystal, sold by Mysterious Galaxy. And then from 4 to 5, Joe's going to be signing in the Penguin booth, Dark Crystal posters. So put that on your calendar. And then I've also been asked to do
1514.
It's booth which one?
1514.
1514. I've also been asked to do a little Henson plug. Our show Puppet Up, Brian Henson's show Puppet Up, which is an adult improv comedy show that he started really to keep fostering the comedic chops of our puppeteers, but then it evolved into this big show, has now opened up in Vegas, the Bellagio. Oh, no, at the Venetian. See, I don't know anything about Vegas. At the Venetian. Puppet Up, and for our fans here today, we wanted to give them an offer code of a 20% discount on it. So if you're going to Vegas anytime soon, the offer code is 20DISC, D-I-S-C. So there you go. And I'll give that again if you want it. So there you go. Business done. So let's get going. Joe, Rob, and Sierra, you're all super fans. I know all three of you are super fans. So the first two questions to each of you are, if you were a creature in the Dark Crystal, who would you be? And also recount for us the first time you saw the movie and its impact on you. I would be a mystic. I'd be Urhal, the wise but not wizened teacher of Gelfling children and podlings. So that's who I am. Go down the line, starting with Rob. Sierra's ready. Yeah.
Sorry, I jumped in there. I think that's really lovely and thoughtful. My favorite character, and probably the character I would also want to be, is Fizzgig. I think he's not representative of who I am inside, but probably what I aspire to be. a little more boisterous, a little more crazy and fun. And he pals around with some really amazing characters. So I'd be Fizzgig.
That's true. I think probably in my gothy youth I would have said a Skeksis, but I think I would agree with Fizzgig now because I feel small and anxious often, so I feel like maybe that's pretty more accurate now.
No pressure, Rob.
Oh yeah, right.
No. It's funny because I was also going to say Skeksis. Not in my gothy youth. In your gothy youth.
In your gothy youth.
Yes.
You were.
But no, I'd say more of a podling these days.
I love
like
the
just
podlings.
like hang
Podlings know how to party.
Hang around at home and just like put around with plants and things. Mm-hmm. Maybe cook up a stew.
So tell us about the first time you saw Dark Crystal, all of you. Everybody has a very powerful story the first time they saw it, so I'm really curious to hear what your guys' first.
I don't remember the first time I saw it, but I did a panel yesterday about Labyrinth. It is the 30th anniversary of Labyrinth, and we also do publications tied to that at Archaia Boom, and similarly. Those are two films that I grew up watching, that I watched religiously over and over and over again. I still watch them at least once a year. So yeah, I don't remember the first time, but it was, I think most people I talked to, friends of mine that we all grew up with this film, were so terrified and intrigued, and it was like, how is this possible? It's so magical. It's so incredible. So it continues to be in my film rotation to this day.
Yeah. I also don't remember the first time, but my dad tells the story that I found a whole crow's wing on the side of a road, and I brought it home because I thought it was so beautiful. And he was like, "I'm gonna take that from you and put it over here, and you're gonna watch this movie, and you're gonna really love it." And so I watched The Dark Crystal, and it terrified me, of course, because that's everybody's first initial reaction. But then after that, I watched it every week, and then tried to get all my friends to watch it because I wanted them to be terrified by it as well. Because then I felt really good about it. And so, yeah, it's more of it's not really a first-time memory, but like a legacy memory of frightening my friends with it. But that's my memory.
What happened to the crow's wing?
I don't know. He probably has it cryogenically frozen somewhere to bring out at a. Who knows?
My first time seeing it, I didn't see it in the theater, but I saw it right after it was released on home video. I think I actually saw it on Betamax, which is what my friends had, because they had VCR first before we did. But I know for a fact they had a Betamax, and so it must have been that. I'm guessing my friend's older brother who rented it. He was a few years older and was a little bit more exploratory in what he rented. It was amazing. I had no idea what I was watching when I saw it, but I was hooked, and it was just fantastic. And I've seen it hundreds of times since. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to confess that it wasn't until years later, after I saw it as a child, that I was like, wait, there's no humans in it? It didn't even occur to me what was happening, that it was an all-puppet film. So sort of like, as a child, you just accepted it. They were real. It was happening. If I put you all in the Swamp of Sog and told you that only one of you could claim the title of the biggest fan of The Dark Crystal, who would win and how would you do it? I'm totally kidding. You do not have to answer that question. Sierra just looks so panicked. But if you could, Rob and Joe.
Joe, he would win. Yeah, I mean, you're probably more in it.
At this point,
you live it.
Yeah, I just described the Swamp of Sog, so I mean, like, I know all of the secret crannies and places to throw rocks from, I guess. That's what they do there.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask group questions. I'm going to ask individual questions. I'm going to ask one big group question. At Henson, we are, and I'm sure many people here, and Joe probably in particular, huge Ursula Le Guin fans. And one of the things that we love that she talks about is every writer has to have extra good ingredients to create vivid prose and fascinating characters, but it's how the ingredients are used that counts. Something extremely good, she writes, can be made from the most ordinary ingredients. So I'm wondering from all of you, I'm going to give you 4, but you could say more. What are sort of the 4 essential ingredients that you use in crafting the Dark Crystal books that you're creating? And that can be something new, or it can be using it from the canon of the film or what's been done before.
Yeah, I mean, I guess atmosphere for sure, conflict and contrast, maybe they're the same. A strong voice and a relatable character, I guess. That's how I would put together any great narrative.
Yeah, I think with The Dark Crystal in particular, Archaia published these 3 volumes of creation myths before I started working there. So right now, while I can't go into specifics, there are certainly plans for more Dark Crystal. And the biggest thing that we're talking about right now is this sense of wonder and how important wonder was to this film and what experience that created, not just for the characters themselves and sort of their own discovery, but what it held for us as viewers. So I think right now that is the main ingredient that I'm sort of grappling with and playing with in what we're going to be doing next with The Dark Crystal.
I wouldn't downplay humor. I mean, there is, especially in your book, Joe, like, dark things happen, and it's thrilling and exciting, but I think the humor really balances that out. And especially in the movie, there is a lot of humor in there. Like if you go back and watch it, there's a lot of stuff in there that's really funny because it balances out the dark moments.
Or it's at the same time that the dark moments are happening. I always think of the banquet scene where it's just this scene of these Skeksis eating, and there's like things running across, and they're just like trying to like get this into their puppet mouths, kind of. And it's just sort of like, I would agree with that.
Right. It's hard to capture the puppet mouths.
I know.
Page,
yeah, it is. Yeah.
You got to write. You'll have to tell us later about writing. Take the limitations that you didn't have any limitations. Puppet limitations with your characters. I want to hear about that. So Sierra, I thought we'd start with you. I want to brag to you all about Sierra for a second. She oversees all the development of several of the upcoming original series, licensed comics and original graphic novels, but she's also edited projects like Buffy the Vampire Slayer by Joss Whedon, the Eisner-winning Green River Killer. You've worked with Neil Gaiman, Guillermo del Toro, and Brian Wood, so you're a legend. Can you talk to us about the creation myths and why start at the very beginning? Why come in there? I mean, obviously, Rob chose a different time to come on in with the story. And tell us a little bit about the books for some of the audiences that may be hearing it for the first time, and what it was like going back to the beginning of Thra.
Yeah. So again, I didn't actually edit those books, but I think those are creation myths take place about 1,000 years prior to the film. So it's the origin stories of all of those core characters, not characters, but groups of people, the Skeksis, the Podlings, and sort of the journey 1,000 years prior, leading all the way up to the heart of what happens in the film in these books, and kind of how did the crystal turn dark and why did it ultimately shatter. That's what those books are about. That's what they explore in graphic novel form. So I think there's just, that world is so vast, and we've been very lucky to be able to work with the Jim Henson Company to expand that sort of mythology and to be able to have access not only to the Hensons themselves, but with Brian Froud, who is such an architect of these characters, and to look at his original designs and art for these things is such an inspiration and a launching point for us to expand this world. So yeah.
And he was involved with the series as well, right?
Yep. So he was kind of integral to what the story was going to be, what new characters and what they were going to look like. Agra has a prominent role, and her son has a prominent role in this book. So it's kind of cool to get more information on who she is and what her lineage and her story is and what her journey is. And she's going to go on and on and on. So.
She does go on and on. Here she is, right here. Where do you plan to take the franchise? If you can give us a little sneak peek or...
Yeah, again, I can't
Inside
talk about
Comic
it too
Con.
much because we're sort of in that development phase right now. I will say that next year is the 35th anniversary of the Dark Crystal franchise, and so we have a number of projects in mind to sort of celebrate that fact. With Labyrinth, we were able to create a publishing program that's rolling out this year, and what I would say is that Dark Crystal is not going to be too dissimilar from what we've done with Labyrinth.
Cool.
That's all I can say.
That's good. And Rob, over to you. Rob and I have worked together at Henson. He was feature film executive and then went on to have this illustrious career in publishing. And
Illustrious.
I was reading your resume since you've been at Henson. I'm like, what? Overseeing all of the Cartoon Network books for Penguin, including the best-selling Star Wars Clone Wars tie-in program, and in charge of middle grade fiction for Gross and Dunlap and Price Sloan, brand extension for Roald Dahl. Oh my gosh, so much. Skylander. I'm excited about this book series, Agatha, Girl of Mystery. So you're killing it, Rob. Can you tell us about The Shadow of the Dark Crystal? It's already gotten 5 stars on Amazon. Awesome reviews, the best review in the school library journal. So can you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. I mean, I'll probably let Joe tell us what the book is about, but
Sure.
I'm just going to maybe tell us like how it came about.
Yeah,
Which I think is
and
really
working
exciting.
with Joe.
And working with Joe.
Yeah.
Well, the idea started probably started a while back, but like 3 years ago, early 2013, our publisher, Francesco Cedita, who's sitting over there, and Lisa Henson met, and we're discussing the possibilities of creating a young adult series based on Dark Crystal. We had no idea at that time what it was going to be, but they had the idea to open up our writer search beyond our, normally how we do it, we reach out to agents, whenever, but just open it up. And so we created what we call the Author Quest. And 3 years ago, today probably, we launched it here at Comic-Con. Lisa and Cheryl Henson were here, and we outlined, kind of put out the guidelines. We said, oh, we're looking for this book series. It's set within this time frame. Here are some of the characters and ideas we want, but we want everyone to feel that they can kind of take that information and do what they want. And then we sent everybody off. And by the end of the year, we received about 500 submissions, and they were like 10,000 words each, which is a lot of words.
It was a lot of words.
A lot of words. We spent a lot of time, and we
stories.
really went through everything, which is, normally if we're going through, we maybe read 10, 20 submissions, if that. So there was a lot. So we brought everybody in, we read it. We brought in everyone from Henson, we brought in Wendy Froud, went through, read everything, and landed on Joe's story, which was, I can't remember this right now. What was it? The Ring of Dreams?
Yep.
Which I would say that, the book has.
I would say the majority of it is at least similar, if not maybe even the same.
So then we signed up Joe, and here we are 3 years later.
Yeah, and you know what, Joe? We, before Comic-Con, updating darkcrystal.com, we were excited. We got to put in your canon.
Oh, yeah.
Book on the timeline.
You
so
know,
there it is.
After all of the book
of
stuff, yeah, and it was like that was the moment almost where it felt the most canon was when it went on the website. I saw it. I'm like, I saw Naya go in next to Jen and Kira, and I was just like, oh, there she is.
Yeah, wonderful.
So.
And then Rob, also the Dark Crystal Author Quest.
Yes.
A Penguin special. That this is available.
Oh, right.
Do you want to tell people about this?
Yes.
You too can go on and read the finalists as well.
Right. So we publish ebook only. The top, was it 5? I think top 5 stories. Is ebook only, and that's available on Amazon. It's great. There's so many. 500 submissions came in, and all of them were good in their own way. But like so many of them were really strong stories. Really hard to pick, which one to move forward. And it's, Thrive is just. It's massive, and there's so many things. We had ones that are set in Sog, we had ones that were set, in the water. We had, every possible version of, a Gelfling story came to us, and it's fantastic. So in that book, you see the top 5. Right. They're all fantastic authors.
Really cool. I particularly loved the really badass Podling.
Oh yeah,
one.
That guy.
Pretty
he was
cool.
the best. Yeah, I imagine that he's still in Thra somewhere. He's doing his own thing.
I agree.
Fighting the good fight.
Yeah, fighting the good fight. Yeah.
So Joe, now we're on to Joe. So there's many questions I'm sure you guys all have for Joe as well. But having been involved in reading all the drafts, I can say that you are an incredible author.
Thank you.
And you have excellent writing, but I'm also sure you read lots and lots of fantasy and books. And so I'm just curious, who are your favorite authors? Who are your favorite writers as well? Can be TV, film, but particularly book authors.
I was influenced a lot as a child by Mercedes Lackey and Roger Zelazny's fantasy works. And then when I was writing Shadows of the Dark Crystal, I reread a bunch of my old favorites like Narnia, the Golden Compass, his Dark Material series, and Peter Beagle's Last Unicorn, and a bunch of those kind of many books that also had like an 80s fantasy movie counterpart, just to try to get back into that nostalgic world. Right now, what did I just finish? His Majesty's Dragon by Naomi Novik, and that's fantastic. I'm kind of all over the place, but I really love fantasy with a twist, I guess. Mm-hmm. I like high fantasy, but I really like it when fantasy is being applied on top of another genre of some kind. So,
what do you feel is the twist on Shadows of the Dark Crystal? Your twist. We know you did a twist because you took
what genre are you hiding underneath?
What am I
what are you hiding from?
Well, it's like it's a young adult. It is actually, in a lot of ways, a young adult novel hiding under the Dark Crystal, or you could say it's the Dark Crystal hiding under a young adult novel. Yeah. But I think maybe almost the twist is that there are no humans in it. It's just the same with the film, where you're watching, then you look back and you think this wasn't even on Earth. There's no humans. This is completely removed from where we are, and so maybe that could qualify as a twist, perhaps.
Sorry, now I'm stealing the questions.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, go ahead.
But how do you feel writing like a YA story, like almost a coming of age story, but from the point of view of a non-human.
Yeah, I mean, it had its own challenges because, right, so Naya's not human, but she goes through a lot of coming-of-age challenges that if the reader can't relate to that, then they're not going to be able to get into the story fully. So it was a challenge to find things about Gelfling culture and about Naya's life that was not human, that could still embody sort of the same themes that young adult readers enjoy reading about and that are important to them.
Yeah, and then choosing Naya, choosing a female point of view. When we gave the authors in the Author Quest this material to work with, Naya wasn't in there. And so how did you channel your inner Gelfling girl? I mean, like, where did she come from?
I mean, I felt that a female voice like Naya's was a voice that was missing in the Dark Crystal world, because we have Agra, but she's definitely not the same type of a person as Naya. And even in the film, Kira is very proactive, and she challenges the Skeksis, but ultimately it's Jen's story. And so it was really important to me to bring a different voice to the world. And so Naya, that's where she kind of came from, is I wanted to pick out of the entire array of characters and pick the one that I didn't see a voice coming from. And then, I mean, after that, it was just sort of coming back to the basics of telling a really good story about a character who has challenges and flaws and, you know, strengths and goals. So that's
a great answer. I mean, having the legacy on your shoulders, do you feel that at all?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
You do?
I mean, this is a film that's been around. I was born in '84, so it's been around since before I was here, and there are so many people who love the film and have seen the film so many more times than I have, and they have their own ideas and thoughts about what was happening before the film, and I also have my own ideas, and I think that what's so great about Thra is all those ideas can exist in the same world really easily. There's not really a way that you can say, well, this is my idea, and that means that your idea can't happen. And so there is weight, but it's also a really great community. So I just feel that that's really the two sides of that.
Yeah, cool. And you know, new canon, because you're making me think of that. Like, it's very exciting to go into a world you love and get to make something new that sticks. I know, even sitting in the creative great conjunction that we were in, that was mind-blowing to me, to be a part of, like, naming the Gelfling tribes, figuring out that on the Wall of Destiny there was a female Gelfling, and going, whoa, it was matriarchal. You know, those kind of things are exciting to, like, bring to the. What did you guys get to bring to the? What's your stamp on it? All of you. Not just Joe.
I mean, so the creation myths take place way, way, way back. It's more focused on Agra and how Thra came to be, and sort of these ideas that formed, like, the philosophy of what the Gelfling are, that led them to what ended up. And where Shadows of the Dark Crystal comes in is way past that, where the Gelfling cultures have really solidified into these clans. And so for me, I really took it upon myself to expand on the section of the encyclopedia online about the clans. So there's, like, a little blurb for each of the 7 clans, and I took that and I really wanted to show, like, this isn't just a stereotype of this Gelfling clan. I wanted to show how each one was really distinct and different. So that's what I tried to explore, I guess, the most, was the Gelfling culture.
One of the things I have to tell you about Joe, if you haven't read the book yet, and you have to read the book, it's fantastic, is Joe has a gift for naming. An incredible gift for naming. So he has created, like, vocabulary of the world in this book. Even the ape knot comes to my mind. Just even that's something that's part of the horticulture. And so, like, you brought through the name, you helped name this world, which I think is amazing too. And in your description of the environments around the different Gelfling tribes, have a real gift for that.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think that it's Thra, right? It's not Earth. I wanted to give things different names, and I think names are so important. Language is so important. I have a background in linguistics, so of course I go straight there when I start talking about culture. But I think calling it, like, a willow tree, it's like, oh, well, we're out in the lake, you know, like, it's not. I wanted to really remove it from our world.
And Rob, what about you?
Well, I think one of the most exciting things was actually was working on the map that's in the book. You can see some of it here. Illustrator Cory Cory Godbe, who did the interior illustrations,
It's wonderful.
created this map. Was really something that we started working on that Joe did, because we just needed to know where everything was and how long did it take from this character walk from here to there. And Brian Froud had done all these wonderful maps, but they were incomplete and there were pieces. And we reached out to the Henson Archives and we got all the pieces and we glued them together and Joe traced over them. And we had Illustrated do it. And we were working on it and there were things that we didn't even necessarily intend to do. We're like, oh, here's this village that the characters are going to, and it takes us far, and it's by this, and then we coincidentally have the map, and there's Gelfling ruins are on this map, and we're like, wow, this is really exciting that this fictional city that we made up, or like I said, we're living city, is this village, just falls exactly on this point on the map where there's these ruins. So it's, it was stuff like that, really be able to kind of go and take all these pieces, because and one of the things going back to when we started working on the book, or just the author quest, one of the big requests we got and we sent off to Henson was everyone wanted the map. They wanted to know where everything was. And it's surprising in all this time that no one had ever sat down and created a definitive map. And what we have now is just piecing together everything that came before and then kind of dropping our pins in of all the places, where we have it. And then it's a different time. So if you look at what's happening on the maps that are set in the film and the map that's in this book, kind of the evil and darkness hasn't quite spread. So some of the areas that were barren by the time of the film are big, Joe wrote as these big lush wooded areas, which initially I was like, whoa, you've made a huge mistake here. And then he was like, no, actually, there's reasoning for all this. And I was like, all right, that makes sense.
Yes, before the films, the time it was a lush, gorgeous world.
Right.
And that must have been cool to tease out. And what about you, Sierra? Or it's secrets for now. You
I know
can't tell us.
it is. I'm bound to secrecy, you guys. But I can say that there will be some new tribes and characters, creatures that we haven't seen before. That is all I can say.
I like
but
that.
It's very exciting.
Good. This is sort of a heady question that's coming up, but when fantasy can sort of speak to the truths of our world that we're in, that we can explore deeper, right? Tolkien did, working out his issues on war, and Game of Thrones certainly has messages that are quite relevant to us all today. So why the Dark Crystal now, today? What makes it feel? I mean, it is this franchise from the '80s, but now it's here, and you brought it fresh. What can it say to young audiences and adults, young at heart, now?
I mean, I think part of it's that no matter your stature, no matter your size, no matter your background, where you come from, that if you really believe in something and you work together, that you can accomplish really great things. I mean, I think that's kind of the journey of these tiny, beautiful gelflings who maybe feel powerless and alone in the world, and they're able to come together to accomplish something really incredible that impacts and changes the lives of everyone, ultimately for the better. So I think that's tremendously relevant now in the world that we're living in, is that no matter who we are and where we come from or our size, that we can accomplish really great things if we do it together. So, yeah.
What about you, Joe?
I mean, I got one review of the book that said that I was making a strong environmental statement about planet stewardship, which at first I was like, well, I didn't mean to do that. But then I thought about it a little bit more, and I think that actually maybe for me what resonates, at least with the Shadows of the Dark Crystal, is this idea of awakening to the world around you in a way. Mm-hmm. So we have the Gelfling, and they're doing their thing, but they don't know that the Skeksis have been doing their thing yet. And then throughout the course of the book, they realize it.
Yeah.
And it's a shock at first, and then after that, they all band together and they come together to try to do something about it. And I think that right now in the world, that's also relevant sentiment that a lot of people are kind of awakening to what is really happening in our world.
To the Skeksis that are in power?
Well, yeah, because
I know some Skeksis.
I'm just
Well,
I'm just saying.
TV.
Because in Joe's book, I mean, the Skeksis are basically, they're the government. They are, and no one questions what they do. They come and they show up and they do their
Essence training.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but disguising it, the kind of doing their census, and they show up in your village, and they go and they meet everybody, and they fill out their books, but they're just kind of being like, oh, he looks tasty, mark that in the book, come back for him later, and everyone's like, well, that's just the way it's always been, so we'll just sit and do that, and then, the characters, small town characters, just say like, hey, this doesn't seem quite right, something going on here, and they're, well, I'm assuming will, at least in some level, be able to take down the government. But we all know it quite doesn't work out that well. We know how.
We don't know that. Who really knows what really happened? Creative talent up here, able to change.
So I guess the
story.
moral story is don't challenge the government.
Yeah, just leave them alone.
Or you'll lose.
I don't agree with that.
Or you'll all die at the end.
Sierra and I are shaking our heads. No, fanboys.
You ruined my
No.
story.
Thank you. So I want to open it up to questions, and I've already. So I'm not sure if we hand around mics, but I guess not. So go for it.
When Jim did the Dark Crystal, he built the world first and then wrote the story around it. When you're writing and creating these stories, do you find that there's a world with a story, because critics weren't happy with the story and all that, do you find that having a world with not as much story restrictive or freeing when coming up with that material?
In a novel, well, first of all, I'm in the position of the world has largely been created already for me. And so I have an extreme benefit of all of that thought that went into the film. It's just accessible for me. I can just be like, oh, what's this part of the world like? Oh, this is what it's like, But in a film, atmosphere can be everything. I mean, that's what we love about the Dark Crystal is we can just get sucked into the world when we watch the film. Whereas in a book, it's a completely textual medium. So there are illustrations by Cory Godbe, and they are fantastic. But when I'm writing, for me, the story did come first for me, but obviously I wrote the story to fit into the world that already existed. I don't know if that exactly answers your question, but maybe it gives you an insight into where.
Over here, back here.
So I feel like in the creation myths, we get, obviously a good understanding of Thrawn and how that's formed and Augra and stuff like that. But then the Great Conjunction is clearly kind of a galactic event that's happening. So in stuff that's going to be coming in future years, are we going to see how that may have affected other cultures or races that might be off of Thrawn? Or because it seems like there's more going on in this universe. Well, yeah, and the Urskeks not being from Thrawn in the first place, so there's already kind of like reference to those things, but there doesn't seem to be much information.
There will be more information.
I feel like saying the same thing. Augra has her
Yes.
eyes on the stars.
On point.
Yeah.
Yeah, and hopefully Archaia will be able to make an announcement about what we're doing in early October. So there'll be more information very soon and some very cool things happening shortly thereafter.
Gelflings in space.
Yeah, they're going to be in spacesuits.
Right there.
So I have a question about just how you got into publishing to begin with, what your writer's journey was like. I know you said you were linguistics before, so if you could share a little bit with us.
Yeah, so I have always written fiction, and then I went to school for linguistics and found out that the only thing you can do with a degree in linguistics is either research or teach, basically. Although nobody told me that you can also have a job creating fake languages for television series, which I wish I had known. But anyway, so I did that, but I would always write. I would always come home and write. I would always find time to write, and so I had some novels that I was shopping with my agent, and she was the one who found the Dark Crystal contest, which led me here. So I'm still, I feel like, in the kind of beginning phases of all of that, but that's my journey so far.
I just want to use this as an opportunity to say that Joe will be writing the remaining 3 books in the series.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yes, it is a good one. He's writing them. The second book comes out next summer, and it is called
Song of the Dark Crystal.
Song of the Dark Crystal. And
You
Cory-
heard it first.
You heard
Yep.
it first here.
Yep, and Cory Godbe will be doing the cover and interior illustrations for those. And we're just excited, Joe's like really crafted. Never mind, I'm not going to do it.
Right here?
In that same vein, are there any plans to turn the books
Not at this time. I mean, it's funny because I think about 12 months ago, around this time last year, we went to Henson and pitched a story within this timeline, and then discovered that these novels were happening and that they were going to be in that space. So we were able to find a different place to come in. So I think right now, this is going to be its own thing. Yeah. But we'll be able to play with some of the continuity that you guys have established, which is really, really cool. I just got my copy last week, so I got some homework to do.
Well, I mean, that's great too, because I mean, we obviously, read your guys' books, and then it's, and it all becomes, canon. So it's, it is interesting having these two companies publish, stuff at the same time, and through Henson kind of working together, making sure that, we're not stepping on each other's toes or
It's a lot of work.
contradicting.
Cheryl,
It is a lot of
Lisa,
work.
and myself in Blanca Lista and features definitely
Yeah.
stay involved with our hands in all of it. It's a lot to manage, but it would be a fun collaboration between you two. Yes.
No, maybe we do a hybrid
I know.
or something.
Yes, why not? Let's do it now. Let's not tell Lisa. Nobody tell her.
Be like a
We're going to
crossover
start in here.
story.
Yeah, right.
Go ahead.
And I have two questions, if that's okay.
Yeah.
My first question was just how, I was gonna ask how closely you guys are in conversation with each other to make sure you don't overlap or contradict each other in the worlds that you're, or the confines of the world. And the second question was about the fan fiction contest. Did you guys think 500 was excellent, way above your expectations, or was it low? Or are you guys, how do you guys feel about fan fiction, and are you guys doing it again?
It was a lot of work. So, I mean, honestly, it was a lot of work to do. I mean, just even the setting up of it and everything. It was fantastic. It was a great experience. I mean, like I said, we had 500, entries, and it's, just as an editor, being exposed to that many new authors was just fantastic. And, and so many great voices and so many, talented people. But no, we have no plans to do another one now. It's, I mean, reading 500 entries it takes a lot of time, and Joe's done such a great job. I mean, it's we just want to keep going with him. Who knows? In a few years, we might decide to do some other side story or do something else, and then bring it back, because it was successful. And we felt like 500 was, I think it was a good number. I mean, we had no idea. I mean, we thought. Some days I thought, well, we're going to get 5,000. Other days I'm like, I hope we get at least one good one. If we're going to get 10 come in, at least one better be good. And maybe we'll try to find a ringer to put in there or something. But no, it was like 500, I feel like, is like a really good number.
And that's a good say. You know what? I can answer your question about how they don't overlap. Lisa Henson.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
Lisa Henson is at the helm of all of this creatively, and make sure that they don't overlap.
Yeah, I mean, we have regular creative calls with
Yeah.
Lisa and Cheryl sometimes, and she's in it. She knows
it.
everything. She knows what everybody's working on, and
Yeah.
she's read it all, and she really keeps us in check.